Afternoon, Pathfinders. I'm going to go through some knots with you today that will help you earn the knot honour. The first and easiest knot of all is the overhand. All we simply do is place right over left like that, and we tuck it under and we pull both ends of the rope, and that is our overhand knot. Now, the second knot is an extension of the overhand knot, and it's called the reef knot or the square knot. Once again, right over left. So we have our rope like that. And we tuck this end under. Now, the next step is we take our left end and go over our right end. So we are now like that. Then we tuck our left end under, pull, and there we have our reef knot. The third knot that is an extension of the overhand knot is the granny knot. Once again, right over left. Tuck it under. But this time, instead of going left over right like we did with the reef knot, we go right over left again. Tuck it under and pull. And this is our granny knot. Now, the next knot, our fourth one, is also an extension of the reef knot, and it is called the surgeon's knot. Once again, we go right over left, and we tuck it under. Now, what we do now, instead of going left over right, is we tuck this under again. Then we tighten our knot. Now, when you're doing a surgeon's knot, you need to do it around something, so we're going to do it around the torch. So we tighten up. Now, what we do next is now we do our left over right. Tuck it under and we pull it, and that locks it in place. And that is the surgeon's knot. Now we're going to do a figure eight. So we just set our rope like this, then we take this rope, pop it over, then we're going to tuck it back under like this. Then we're going to take this end and pop it up through here, and pull it, and we have a lovely figure of eight knot. Now let's try a figure eight on the bite. So first of all, we double our rope like this, and we're going to take this end, we're going to make a loop like this. Then we're going to tuck this under, bring this back up here, to pop it through there, and pull. And there we have a figure eight on the bite. Now we're going to tie a slip knot. So we just set our rope like this, we pop this end over like that. Then we need to get this part of the rope and tuck it up in here like this. So we've got that there, grab both our ends, grab the one we're tucking through, pull, and there we have our slip knot, which comes up and down. So that is a slip knot. Now, the next knot we are going to try is a sheet bend, which is used for joining two ropes together. So first of all, we have our first rope here and we set it like this, loop and pinch together. We take our second rope, one end of it, and we bring it through like this and over there. Now, we follow the over-under rule, except we need to go under both. So we're going to make sure we go under both of those. Pull our rope through, then we come over, under, over, and then we pull both ends, and we have our sheet bend knot. The next knot we're going to tie is the carrick bend, which is another knot that can be used to join two pieces of rope or lines together. So first of all, we start with this rope. We pop that over there. We take our second rope, pop it underneath like this. And then we simply follow the under-over principle. So we are under there, so we are over this one. Then we come under this one, over, under, and over the end. Now, we grab both the ends of our green rope and our yellow rope, pull together, and there we have our carrick bend. Another knot that you can use to tie two pieces of rope together is a fisherman's knot. So what we need to do with a fisherman's knot is we need to simply tie this rope, our green one, onto the yellow one. So we loop around, we come over and go back through like that. Now, if we come to the other end of the rope, we want to do the same thing, but we want to do it where we tie the yellow rope onto the green rope. So we loop it round, over, come back through, and then pull these ropes together, if I pull them in the right spot, and there we have a fisherman's knot. The most important thing to remember about the fisherman's knot is that when we're tying these knots, your ends need to be pointing outwards. Otherwise, when you pull it together, it won't join nicely like that. Now we're going to tie the lark's head knot, which is one of the easiest knots you'll tie. First step is to have your rope so it's doubled over like this. Then we have our object. We simply pop our rope over like this, tuck our loop under, then grab our other end of the rope, pull it through, and pull it tight. And that is a lark's head knot. Now we're going to tie the prusik knot. You will see that the lark's head knot is still in place from the last knot that we did. That's because this is the start of the prusik knot. So to tie the prusik knot, we will take these two ends of the rope, we'll wind them around, coming through the centre of the other two ropes, under the loop, and we will pull. Now we have 4. Now we'll repeat this again. Coming around, remembering to go through the centre of the rope, then coming back through our loop, pulling it through like that, and pulling it nice and tight, and that is a prusik knot. Now we're going to do a clove hitch. To do a clove hitch, we place our rope over the object, we bring it under, we go over again, but we cross over, so we have a nice cross like that. Then we come back under, and we go through the middle of the cross, pull and then pull both ropes tight, and that is our clove hitch. Now we're going to do a slippery hitch. We start off the same as a clove hitch. We bring our rope around and cross over. So we have a nice cross there. Then we come back under. Now, we don't poke through the middle like we do with a clove hitch. We make a loop like this in the rope. We tuck that under, and then we tighten. And that is a slippery hitch. The reason it's called a slippery hitch is because if I want to undo it, just pull that and it's undone. Now we're going to tie the alpine knot. We start with the rope across our hand like this. We wrap around 3 times. So we've got 3 wraps around our hand. Now we take the middle one and pull it under the first one. Then we wrap it round the other 2 and tuck it under. And we grab our 2 ends and we pull it through, and there we have an alpine knot. Okay, now we're going to tie a bowline. So what we first need to do is create a loop in our rope, like this. Okay. So we've got a loop like this. We might just make that a little bit bigger. So we pinch it there, then we grab this end, and we come up through the hole, around the back, the other rope, then back through the hole, pulling it tight and giving us our bowline. Now we are going to tie a bowline on the bite. So what we need to do first, make sure our rope is doubled over nice and neatly. Then we're going to make a loop like this. Fold it over like that. Then we're going to take this loop, tuck it under and through. Now, then we grab this rope, pull it through our loop like that, and pull it, and there we have our bowline on the bite. Now we're going to do a timber hitch. So we'll start off by taking our rope, passing it under and back over like that. Then we'll bring it around there like that. Now what we need to do is wrap it around this rope 3 times. 1 and 2 and 3, and then we tighten, and that is our timber hitch. Now I'm going to show you how to do a strangle knot. First thing we need to do is do 3 wraparounds. So wrap that around 3 times. Now we take this end and pass it under all 3 of our wraps like that. Then we take this end and pass it under the opposite way, under all 3 ropes, including the other one that we just passed through from the other end. We pull that through, we tighten, and that is the strangle knot. This knot is called the packer's knot. What we do is we pass the rope under the object that we want to tie it to. We come back around, we come under our other piece of rope, and then we take this piece and we pop it up through like that. Then we take this end and come back through here. And then we pull on that and we tighten it up. Now, to make sure this is secure, we also need to tie a half hitch on the end of it. So we just make our loop, pop that end back through and pull. And that is the packer's knot.
The overhand knot is generally tied as a stopper knot, but is a useful component for building other knots as well. It's one of the most simple knots that you can learn, and it's very easy to tie. All you need to do is create a small loop in the rope, and then bring your working end around the back side and go back up through the loop that you formed, and then tighten it up. And that is the overhand knot. Now, as a bonus, if you know how to tie the overhand knot, then you automatically know how to tie the half hitch. So basically, we're going to take an overhand knot and we're going to tie it around an object. And when it's tied around an object, that becomes a half hitch. So this is your half hitch. It can be formed in this way, or you can kind of bring this end down and form it like this and tighten it up. And that is also a half hitch. Now, the half hitch in and of itself is not a very secure knot. In fact, it's not secure at all, but it is a useful knot for securing the ends of other knots. So I'll show you with just a little bit of movement, you can pull the half hitch right out. But when we go to tie other knots, by adding in a half hitch at the end of our knots, it will make those other knots a lot more secure. Sheet bend is a bend knot used to tie 2 different lines together. The benefit to the sheet bend is kind of twofold. First of all, you can use it to tie larger diameter rope to smaller diameter rope, which is not always true of all bend knots. And it is especially easy to untie after it's been loaded, especially when you tie it in its double or its triple form. To tie the sheet bend, the first thing you want to do is, if you're using 2 different size of rope in your larger line, you want to create a bite. Then with your smaller diameter rope, you'll come up through that bite. You'll start working around this towards the side that has the bitter end on your rope, and you'll wrap around, completely around that rope. Then you'll lift up here and you'll tuck the tail underneath and then pull it tight. And that is the sheep bend. Now to form it in its double or its triple formation, all you have to do is take either another wrap or another 2 wraps. So if we go twice, tuck it back in, and then tighten it all up, dress the knot, that is the double sheep bend. And then if we were to go 1 more wrap, that would be the triple sheep bend. The slip knot forms a simple loop knot in the end of a line or the center of a line, and it's very easy to tie, and it can be used as a component to other knots as well. When you finish with the slip knot, what it does is provide a simple noose knot where it will self-tighten against an object that is wrapped around. So to tie this one, all you have to do is turn a small loop into your line, then take that loop, we're going to fold it over the standing end, and then we're going to reach through, pull a bite of the standing end through. That's going to form our loop, and now all we do is pull the working end and the standing end together along with our loop, and that forms our slip knot. Now the slip knot is kind of a bonus knot also, because if you add a simple toggle to the slip knot, it becomes another knot. We're going to use this piece of pipe as the toggle that becomes the marlin spike. Now, this can be used for a variety of different things. You can use it as a handle to get tension on a rope to get a better grip. It can also be used, if you think about 2 parallel lines with multiple toggles, you could make a makeshift ladder out of this as well. So to tie this one, we're going to do it just like we did the slip knot, wherein we're going to turn a loop, then we're going to turn that loop over the standing end. We're going to pull a small loop through. Now, instead of tightening this one at this point, we'll just set our toggle, and now we'll pull the standing end and the working end in opposite directions, dress our knot, and that forms the marlin spike. The bowline is largely considered to be the king of all the knots, and it's a very ancient knot. It's used to make a fixed loop at the end of a rope. Now, this particular knot dates back, we know in history, to at least 4,500 years ago. It was found on King or Pharaoh Khufu's ship that they found at the base of the Great Pyramid when they excavated it in the 1950s. So this knot, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to tie this one. So the first way, we're going to come down the end of the rope about 18 inches, 2 feet. It just depends on how big you want your loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn a small loop into the rope. Now think of that like you turn the ignition on your car, and that's how you form that loop. Now we'll take the working end of the rope, and we're going to pass it up through that loop, and then we're going to reach around. We're going to take it underneath the standing end of the rope, and then we're going to drop it right back down in the original loop. And then we're going to pinch it off here, pull on the standing end, pull them apart, and that will form the bowline. That's the first method. The second method is more of a speed tie. What you'll do is you'll fork the end of the line between your 2 fingers, and then you want to cross over this line in the next pattern, and then in one motion you want to kind of flip this over and rotate your wrist, and now that forms that first loop that we were working with, and it already has the line pre-positioned inside of that loop. Now we can just reach around, send it right back through that loop, pull them apart, and that is also another way to tie the bowline. And the last method I'm going to show you is what's called the slip method. So basically we're going to form a slip knot in this line. So we're going to go down, rotate and make our loop. Then we're going to fold that over our standing end, and then we're going to pull a loop of the standing end through. Now we'll take the end of the rope and we'll pass through that loop, and then we'll bring it back and pinch it on itself. Now we're going to hold this, and then on the standing end, we're going to pull them apart. And when we do, this portion will flip over, and that will form the bowline. So that is known as the slip knot method. The alpine butterfly is a way to make a fixed loop knot in the middle of the rope. Now I'm going to show you a couple different ways to tie this one. Now this has the added benefit of being very easy to untie, even after it's been subjected to pretty substantial load as well. So the 2 methods to tie this one, let me get this one apart first. We're going to do what's called the wrap method. So with the wrap method, we're going to wrap it around our hand twice in order to form 3 lines. Now we're going to take the center cord and we're going to pull it up, and this is going to be what actually determines our loop size. Now we're going to take this piece and we're going to go underneath the third cord, And then we're going to go over and back under the 2 cords. Loop around, and then all we have to do is pull it apart and dress this knot up. And this is going to form our alpine butterfly. Once you have it dressed, there she is. Now the second method is what's known as the figure 8 method. So what we'll do is we'll take a bight in the rope and we're going to twist it twice in order to form